Hello, hello, and welcome to a weekly card reading. Boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is going to be a big week, and I did speak into it a little bit last week in our weekly reading, how we were in for two whopper weeks. And this one starts with the super full moon in Aquarius right now on Monday. So obviously with full moons and with any astrological transits, they are not just a one-hit wonder. It's usually the day before, the day of, the day after. So this is already an energy we were feeling from last week. I have brought in some feathers, the oil blend balance for grounding, lots and lots of kyanite crystals, and some Zen Jest, which is supportive of our digestive system, and that is something that we all need to be supporting on the regular, but also particularly right now the digesting of the energies that are going on. So when you work with essential oils or any tools, it's not just how they impact the body, it's also, well, if I were digesting food, that would be how it would impact my obvious physiology, but also how does that impact my mental health, how does that impact my emotional health. So it's not just the food we eat, it's also the information we consume, and it's the people we surround ourselves with, the conversations we have. All of those things impact us energetically. And the energies right now are really, really intense. There's no getting around it. And also, they're not coming to a close within the next few years. We are looking at a few more big years. We are at this precipice of change that is unlike anything probably that we've seen before, even 2020. So that doesn't have to be scary, but it is also scary. But try to look at it more as exciting, because it is a new earth forming. It is evolution in progress, and we are right here on the front line, and that is an exciting time in history for us to be here. But for those of you who watch this, who like me are very sensitive people energetically, so you might be empathic, you might be somebody who is kind of high on the psychic spectrum, intuitive spectrum, anything around there, and or you may have children that way or family members that way who probably get called oversensitive a lot of the time. I want you to just be aware of some of the symptoms that are very common for yourself to be experiencing or people you know to be experiencing. Pressure is a big one. That seems to be really showing up a lot lately. Pressure. So pressure in the head, pressure behind the eyes, pressure in the sinuses, a lot of dizziness, feeling a little bit like woozy. It's almost like trying to metabolize this energy is kind of pushing us off balance, hence that oil. And maybe even nausea, perhaps and it also does depend on where your kind of tells are. So a lot of people's guts might be symptomatic, whatever that is for you. So it really does depend. Like if you're prone to a runny tummy or constipation or just cramping or gas, and it's more than usual, or it's maybe even though you know how to manage it, it's showing up and you're not sure what to do about it. These kinds of symptoms right now, I just really feel it's important to tell you, it's really about how we are metabolizing or trying to uptake this information and these downloads that are flooding. So try to be gentle with yourself, and we will jump into the reading. Remember, it is a group collective reading. It's for whoever finds themselves here, and it doesn't even have to be in the specific week that you find it. When you find it is the right time for you. Choose a number between 1 and 4, and that will give you a little bit of extra for what you need to know for this week. And if you are looking for personalized readings, please get in touch with the links below. So here we go. We have 2 major arcana on the end. We have a wands card. Remember last week we had only wands cards, and we have a swords card, and also 2 right way up, 2 upside downs. And some of these are real repeat visitors for us. We've had the 8 of wands a lot lately. And just a reminder that we had 8 wands, not 8 of wands, but wands last week like crazy, and wands are fire. This 8 of wands is the right way up, and he is initiating this reading with a bang and a pop and a zim and a zap. And that, I mean, I didn't even get into the full range. I'm going to put the link to my Aquarius Full Moon reading below this. It's just too much astrology right now to bring into this reading as well. But Uranus is squaring this full moon, so this card very much is that burst of freedom, of insight, of ignition, of change, of dynamism. And usually when we kind of have these bursts or accelerations, they are extremely exciting and extremely terrifying, because we're not the best at getting out of our comfort zones. And usually huge change is about getting out of our comfort zones. And just in terms of the grand design of the way the energy is flowing, is that, when we feel really terrified, just remember that it's happening sort of progressively, and yes, it's intense, but it's also fairly gradual to shift and change us in as gradual a way as we will change. And that's not usually without challenge. So we need to be changing. We need to be looking after our planet better. We need to be making better choices as a species, towards one another, the planet, etc. And that's kind of the trajectory that we're hopefully on. Then we have the Four of Swords, and this one is upside down, and this is very much about burnout. Swords is an air card. It is a burnout card, especially if it's upside down. It's saying if you don't take that rest, if you don't stop and consolidate and digest whatever's going on in your life, you are more highly likely to burn out on some or many levels. So if you just think about this being very much an information age, and right now the information that we have access to in the space of a day is more than people a few hundred years ago could have access to in a lifetime. And if you're the kind of person who feels like information is going to help you, I know I'm like a voracious information consumer, and sometimes that just gets too much. And we need to recognize that we are still here in a human body, and we need to shut down. It's like a computer. And of course, computers and AI and all of that is just getting bigger and bigger, and is going to continue to get bigger and bigger. And we are not computers in that way. We need to shut down our bodies and our brains. We need to reboot. We need to rest, digest, and heal. And this is a reminder of that. So as much as there is the speed of the Eight of Wands and that intensity and that shift and change and dynamism, which is exciting and terrifying, there needs to be moments to rest. So whether you're excited and you want to jump right on that runaway freight train and move on with humanity, you still need to rest. Or whether you're terrified and you don't want to, and it's moving too fast, and you're trying to find solutions and you don't have time to rest because you're so busy, you still need to rest. So whichever side of that scale you're on, you need to find ways to rest, to decompress. This card is less about play, but it is important for you to also find ways to play and be in fun and joy. And I love always with this card just pointing out how there is that heart there, and that it is to reset from the heart brain almost, is why it's not just the head brain, but the head brain, when it gets on that hamster wheel and doesn't know how to get off, it just throws everything out. And to find that steady heartbeat, that slowing down rhythm of rest is really, really powerful. And it doesn't have to be long. So even try it. You could realize you're having a really stressful day, and in your lunch break, you can take 20 minutes to get horizontal and close your eyes, maybe put on some music that works for you, or do a little meditation. Just get a little rest. Even a little midday reset is very, very powerful. And then we jump to these two major arcana cards, which are, as I always say, those big archetypal journey cards, and also they're bigger than us. And they're both early in the journey. I mean, the High Priestess is the third card. She's number 2, but remember that we start with the 0 card of the Fool. And it's that Fool's journey turned hero's journey. And the High Priestess is a card of intuition and insight and inner knowing. You can almost see like the eyes on her eyelids. So she sees without seeing with her physical eyes. And you can see how she connects to the shadow and the light and everything above her. I mean, I love the stars and the moon and into that cosmos, and we dive in there. And so for the high priestess, it's also very important to get out of your head in some ways, because she is accessing from a place that is like ESP, extrasensory perception. It's outside of the fear. And in fact, it's very hard to access her power if we are spiraling in fear, or if our intellect or ego are getting to a point where they're trying to solve all the world's problems. Then it's very hard for us to actually hear that intuitive voice. I always say the intuitive voice whispers to us. So you actually almost have to tune yourself in like a radio dial to her. And this is easier said than done, and it does take patience and practice. And there are times when you're in a calm place and you're just able to access it, or when you're sleeping and you're able to access it more easily. But then there's times where you really feel you need to, and you cannot hear the inner voice, because everything, the ego voice or the intellectual hamster wheel is going, and you just cannot switch it off. And that's why honing your skills of being able to step out of that space, rest, pull yourself back, whatever that is for you, you've got to figure it out. So I mean, and I have a whole heap of tools. I teach many of them. I have courses on Udemy, but even so, there are times where I have to try a tool to try and find the one that's going to work in the moment. So let's say I try to meditate because that seems like the thing to do right now, because I'm freaking out and I can't connect to my intuition, but I just can't meditate because I'm too wild and I just cannot bring myself back. Sometimes then I like to put on some music and just dance around and let the music move me out of my space. Or sometimes I like to do housework because that is kind of monotonous, and while I'm doing it, it's physically moving my body in ways I don't have to think about, and that sort of shifts me again out of my space. Or sometimes it's a walk in nature. So just recognizing that the more we develop our skills and tools around these things, the more we have to access from when we're in a state where we need that. And some of those times it's easier, and some of those times it's not. And that's perfectly normal. So even in your bad times, you will have something to work with, most likely. But remember to keep developing your skills and tools along the way. And then we have the strength card, another frequent flyer for us of late. And also, as I mentioned, every time it comes up, probably, it is the card of the year. It's the 8 card, and 2 plus 2 plus 4 is 8, 2024. So we find this card is even more potent when it shows up, and it's been showing up, and it is all about us finding our strength. And this time it's come upside down. And for me, that's quite pertinent, because I feel like we may not feel strong in these trying times. We may feel like we just don't have the resilience and the grit and the determination. We don't have what it takes. But we also need to recognize that strength is not always what we think it is. It's not always the lion. Sometimes it's the lamb. It's not always showing up strong and ready for a fight. Sometimes it's being soft and kind and compassionate to somebody that nobody else is able to be soft and kind and compassionate to. That takes strength. That takes courage. And I don't know why, but courage is always a word that comes up for me just as much as the word strength does when this card shows up. And vulnerability is another word that comes up with this card a lot, because that for me is part of where we need to really recognize the strength that it takes to be vulnerable. And this is very much a card that connects to the sign of Leo. And as we have this full moon at 27 degrees of Leo, we're in the last few days of Leo season. The Aquarius full moon is the first full moon in its sign, where it's sharing the sign, the archetype of Aquarius, with Pluto. This is a big power shift. And if you imagine the lion as the king of the beasts and the head of the country, whether the king or the queen or the president or the government or, the mayors, however you want to see that. If you think about that and you think about what would it take to be a good leader, what is it in my leaders or the leadership of my town or my country or my whatever that I don't agree with, that doesn't seem to be working? How could I be a better leader? And that doesn't mean you want to lead your country. What it does mean is that you have to be the leader of your life, and you have to lead by example. So leadership feels like a very strong way for you to observe this card and turn it around, because this card is upside down and we're saying the leadership is not working. I don't feel safe in my environment because of X, Y, and Z. Things are not working the way that they could be or should be. And how could that be better? How could the community come together and improve situations? And that's a big part of the shift that's happening for us energetically as a species, as a planet. So I hope this has been helpful. It's gotten rather long, so I'm going to stop now. I try to keep these a little bit shorter. As I said, I am going to link that Aquarius Full Moon reading down below, so please look out for that. And remember, if you're needing some personal support, to just get in touch. I love likes, shares, comments, and subscribe. So thank you for all your support, and have a very blessed and insightful week.